What is good, my Groofs? It is your GG Replay for Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. GG Replay, of course, is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday show where we break down the latest in gaming news, hosted by us, the Goodnight Groofs, a place for games. And you know what? Gosh darn it, it's a place for goofs too. And I know we're workshopping the slogan, but I'm feeling it coursing through my veins today. Matt, I have, of course, Paul, and I'm referring to Matt, who is not sitting across from me. I was going to say sitting across from me, sitting across the world from me. Right now. How are you doing today on this fine Wednesday, Matt?
Speaking of things running through your veins, did you chug a Red Bull right before this episode?
I didn't. I had one a couple hours ago, but no, I'm just hyped to be here with you today, enjoying the replay, and we have so many great things to talk about. I'm just psyched.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Let's jump right into this thing. We have a lot to cover today. It's going to be a good one.
We do. We jump right in. But before we jump right in, we do have a small announcement, or maybe, you know what? It's a darn big announcement. And you know what? That is that we will be co-streaming tomorrow's PlayStation Showcase event. So the show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. Our pre-show will begin at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. So we have 15 minutes to goof around, make sure we're all in there and ready to go. The website, of course, is twitch.tv/goodnightgroofs. And you know what? If you have a free moment, you're at your computer, you're at your phone right now, make sure to just go on Twitch and follow us so you know when we go live for this event or for any event. And the show is expected to last about 40 minutes, and our VOD will be on Twitch afterwards, and we will make a by we, I mean Matt, will make a fantastic highlight reel to go on YouTube, or maybe even the whole show, and you can watch that. Like we had our pretty popular Gamescom opening night live YouTube video, which is our first YouTube video to go. Like we have like 300 views. I think it's our only video to crack like 100 views. So pretty awesome. So
doing all right.
Clearly the streaming is the move. So we will keep streaming for y'all, and I hope everyone is psyched to join us. We had a solid average 11 people or something last time, which was pretty good. It wasn't just us and our friends, so it was nice.
It was fun.
It was fun. We're really excited about that. And just moving in before we go and say a bunch of stuff, just to remind you that if you come across any necessary corrections in today's episode, please send them to ggreplayshow@gmail.com or head down to the YouTube comments below so we can address them in the next episode. Matt, the reviews are in, and they are in. I'm telling you, there are a lot of games that were reviewed and a lot of pretty cool games. So we're going to start off. This is not necessarily in any order, but I will say the games do seem to be getting better as we go down the list here.
Yeah.
I will start off with Hindsight 2020 Wrath of the Rakshasa. It's an action game. It got a 60 on OpenCritic, out tomorrow. I tried to look at this game a little bit. It wasn't a big hit, it seems like. It was kind of a smaller indie game. Matt, I feel like you have some opinions on this, so I'll let you kind of run through how you're feeling.
Yeah, I just thought it kind of looks like what you might think like a solo dev or a small dev team's second or third game might be, like almost like a Zelda-like type thing. But then I saw that this actually comes from former BioWare and Sucker Punch developers, and then that kind of just made me sad, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't look terrible. It looks kind of like if someone tried to make Psychonauts 2, but they didn't have any of the pedigree or the the level design or anything like that.
Oh, it looks bad. And the reviews back that up. A 60 in today's video game review environment is pretty dang bad.
I did see some enthusiasts of games like this who did seem to I think the reviews averaged 60, obviously, but I think there was a few people outlying who thought it was really good, who were kind of fans of this kind of game. But I don't think it's going to pull anyone in that wasn't already going to play something like this and isn't pretty forgiving.
I hated the camera angle. The camera angle is like a mix. It's like between top down and third person. Like, pick one.
I agree. It seems like it's kind of all over the place. But, best of luck to you out there, the developers of Hindsight 2020.
Hindsight 2020 was make a better game.
You know what? In Hindsight 2020, make a better game. That's a good one. I like that. Moving on, we have Dice Legacy. This is as you wrote, an RNG city builder, but there's so much to this game. It got a 71 on OpenCritic. It's out tomorrow. This is interesting. If you look at Steam and the tags on it, you could really tag this anything. It's got city builder aspects, roguelike aspects. It has strategy aspects. It's a strange game.
That's also Steam tags for you.
Yeah, so I mean, you're like inside a basically a Halo, sort of
Yeah.
running like little towns, and it's really RNG based. It looks interesting. 71's not a bad score. I think if there are people who this appeals to, I think it definitely has the ability to grab people. I think it's a little bit too much of a mixed bag for me. I like strategy and city builder games that seem to have a little more clear focus. This seems a little more out there, so I'm not sure if it's for me, but. Yeah, it looks all right.
I like the art style. And
Hmm.
Paul, I realized, I don't know why, but I'm like a really big fan of 3D rendered dice
Yeah,
and like fit like physics of like digital dice. I don't know why. It's
yeah.
something about it's really appealing to me.
It's felt like when we were playing on Roll20 when we were playing
Yeah.
D&D in the spring. It was really nice when you like roll all the dice and they just go flying all over the
Yeah.
screen. It's pretty fun. I do agree. I like that too. That's an interesting thing to notice about yourself.
Yeah, it's a random thing to like, but
Nice.
I
For
do
your
like
birthday,
it.
I'll get you some digital dice. I'll
Oh,
roll them
thank
onto your
you.
screen.
Perfect.
All right, moving on. We have some games that I've been excited and waiting for. First off, we have The Artful Escape, which is a narrative game, lightly rhythm based, I'd say. The few sections of gameplay that exist. It got a 78 on OpenCritic. It's out tomorrow. It's a day one on Game Pass, published by Annapurna. Pretty excited for this myself. Now, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to play through it. But from some of the reviews I saw, it definitely has the vibe like it's more movie than game. Just in general, the gameplay seems light, and this was always something for the last couple of years as I've been following this game, excitedly, anxiously waiting for it to come out. It's always felt like you're watching this beautiful side-scrolling adventure, but it never seemed like how it would play as a game. Like, what are the gameplay mechanics? I don't see combat. I don't see other things. Like, what's going to happen? There's some choices it looks like, but are the choices, how much are they really going to actually change the game or just change like a light story element? That does seem to be kind of how they've gone with it. So it does seem to be a pretty linear narrative with some like visual changes you can make. The music seems pretty cool, but again, they didn't like make any sort of like indie. They didn't make songs that would reflect the artist. They really just had like a cool original soundtrack, which is still awesome, but wasn't exactly maybe the blowout I was hoping it would be. I was hoping this would be like an 88 kind of game. Feels like obviously it feels like it lives up to the 78 kind of number. So I'm excited for Artful Escape. I'm still gonna play through the whole thing. It's free on Game Pass, but I'm a little disappointed. It didn't quite like wow me and change and like do something I wasn't expecting it to do, I guess.
Visually, I love the art style.
Same. Love the art style.
I don't like how the characters move though. Like I don't like
Mhm.
the animations for the movements. It's a little weird and stiff,
Yeah, it is.
which I understand is the style that they're going for.
That's a style,
I
yeah.
just don't personally like it, but I really like how there's like a depth to these 2D figures. I do really like that, and it like from a visual standpoint, it looks awesome. Like that
Yeah.
alone is a reason to at least jump in, I think.
Yeah. Got a real Angela Anaconda look
Yeah, a
about
little
it.
bit, a little bit.
Yeah, it looks cool. I'm still gonna play it, but yeah, we'll have to see. I'll let you know how it goes on Game Groups this week or next week maybe. I'll probably have more time to play it. All right, moving into something else, we have WarioWare Get It Together. Josh was excited for WarioWare Get It Together. Mini game based party game. I got a 76 on OpenCritic. It's out Friday. This game seems to have kind of thrown some things in the works here. I'm obviously just kind of taking some reviews and putting them together, but I will say it seems like kind of mixed results on how simple and fun and goofy the mini games were. They added like playable characters that in the story mode have to be randomized, and a lot of
Hmm.
them are just like worse versions of other characters. So some are like literally the same character, but they jump up and down the whole time for some reason. Just weird stuff like that. It's like, oh, it's quirky because like some are worse than others because they have a weird quirk to them, and it's like, I guess I'd rather just play like the good character.
Right.
um, yeah, and also just in general, adding a lot of systems that don't necessarily seem like they need to be there for like it's not Mario Party, it's WarioWare, it's a goofy party game. It's like super simple and based on the jokes, I guess. Even if they had been like a perfect 10 out of 10 WarioWare game, I just don't get it. I'm not really one for just like kind of sitting and playing. Like I'd rather play a slightly more complex party game, I guess, like a slightly more visually like a Mario Party. I'd be more interested in
Yeah.
that. But even then, I never really played much of that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just not like a party game guy. Matt, what's your take on WarioWare?
I like party games and I like mini games. WarioWare's just always been a little bit too out there for me. I think the only like Wario based game that I've really liked is Wario World on the GameCube. That one I really liked, but obviously it's nothing like WarioWare. WarioWare is just
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little much for me, Paul. Little much for me.
A little much. Could you tone it down there, Wario? All right, moving on to something else I'm pretty excited for. I've vacillated back and forth. I had a great experience with Life is Strange. I definitely gave some good time to be Before the Storm. I never actually finished it, but I will say I look forward to going back and trying to finish Before the Storm because I think in some ways it might even be better than the original. Life is Strange 2, though, really took me off the track. I think a lot of people have that feeling. Different characters, different vibe, different feel of the game. Kind of threw that off. So now we're coming back at it. Life is Strange, True Colors got an 81 on Open Critic. It's out Friday, and you know what? It's pretty darn cool. I'm pretty excited. I haven't looked at a lot of reviews because I don't want to get majorly spoiled because I think I am interested now. I really like the characters. I really like the setting. This seems like it's going to bring me back. I wasn't crazy about the brothers thing from Life is Strange 2, but I think because that's just not a very relatable thing for me, I guess. Only child vibes. I mean, obviously I can relate to the story, but it wasn't quite the same for me. And the power set too. I think this is really interesting. It seems like the main power set here is like absorbing other people's emotions and then like using them for something, which is pretty cool. So that's very, very much for me, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm interested. Matt, you also like the original Life is Strange.
I do.
So how are you feeling about True Colors?
I like the original Life is Strange. Didn't play Before the Storm. I know that wasn't a Dontnod developed game.
No.
So which is I think it's the Before the Storm team is the same team that is making True Colors, I believe.
I think it might be, yeah.
And Dontnod made Life is Strange 2. Didn't play
Sure.
that. I played like the prequel game, the
Captain Spirit.
Yeah. I really liked it.
I actually really like Captain Spirit more than I like Life is Strange 2. I think I saw a bunch of people say that too.
Yeah, Captain Spirit was awesome. It was like a nice short 2-hour game.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the time manipulation powers of Life is Strange 1. Yeah. I know Life is Strange 2, like Captain Spirit, is telekinesis type stuff.
Yeah.
They're calling it the power of empathy. The way that you worded it made it sound cooler. Like taking people's emotions and like using that to manipulate certain things. Like that's cool. The way that
you can manipulate people's emotions and like you can also like you feed off them. So like it gives you like a big like when everyone's getting angry, you like feel that and it like builds up inside you and then like you explode or some crazy thing happens. I think there's some kind of there's like a ton like a super empathy or something.
Like there's a much better way to market it than they did by calling it the power of empathy. That just makes it sound like you're just like a nice person. That's
I was gonna say call it like emotional manipulation, but that sounds extremely different and toxic. I can emotionally manipulate people. It's like, yeah, okay, so can you and like my stepdad, but that's not what I'm looking for here in this game.
The trailer to me looked super melodramatic, which I do understand. Like I do understand Life is Strange 1 was like that, and I did like that game, but at the same time I felt like Life is Strange 1 had sort of there was some sort of like weird mysterious Twin Peaks vibe almost to it that I'm not getting from this.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The whole school and the town and everything just felt a little off and strange in the original Life is Strange. And I just feel like, yeah, I agree. I haven't really felt that in the other ones where like the whole world and there's like this big mystery in the town kind of thing. It feels more like just you have a power and it's like affecting your personal life, less is like everything around you seems to have a creepy vibe. I agree with you. I actually like that a lot. The Vortex Club and everything in Life is Strange 1. There was something there. And even though half the time there wasn't really a there was something interesting about the mystery of it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Life is Strange 2 wasn't like a sequel necessarily to the story of Life is Strange 1, right?
It was completely unrelated. I mean, obviously it's in the same universe, but once again, I mean, not obviously, but it is in the same universe. But we're getting totally different characters. There's no Chloe, there's no Max, there's no nothing related to the first one, which is like a lot of people felt was pretty controversial. Dontnod came out and said, we told the story we wanted to tell with Chloe and Max. We're done. We don't need to tell it again. They did actually do DLC for Life is Strange 2, or I think it was Before the Storm. There was DLC that basically like gave you some Chloe and Max stuff, I think at some point, just kind of tying things up. And they've done some comics that tied up the story, I think a little bit more too. But they've pretty much said like they don't want to make another game focusing on them.
That's disappointing because I would love
disappointing because I liked those characters and I liked the characters adjacent and like or even the world. Like it'd be cool for it to take place in Arcadia Bay. I mean, obviously, canonically, that could be strange.
But, yeah, they would have to pick a canon ending.
Yeah. Not
which
to
would
spoil, but yeah,
which would
it could
just
be.
be a massively debated, heated
It would be.
topic.
It would be. And they kind of have, I think. But anyway, that's beside the point. The point is, True Colors looks pretty good. I think it looks like another. It's hard to say another Before the Storm, like a side entry, because that was so emotionally tied into the first one, which this is not. But it looks like a good anthology game, I think, like Life is Strange 2 kind of felt like, where it's just like other people having powers and the same vibes and the same feeling. And so I'm here for it. I like the character. The main character seems cool. The characters around seem cool. I'm into it. I'll play it. I'll let you know on Game Groofs how it goes. I don't think that's on Game Pass, right? I think I have to pay real ass dollars for this game. So
Yeah, well, is it? I assume they're still doing the episodic format, right?
yes, but I think they're releasing them all at once.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
That's
I
interesting.
think they said they were doing
Why?
that. But I'll have to double check.
It's weird. Okay.
All right, moving on to our final game for the review section of the show, Tales of Arise. Very anticipated, hotly anticipated JRPG. Got an 87 on OpenCritic. It's also out Friday, so those of you looking to play Life is Strange True Colors, you gotta choose. It looks pretty cool. It looks like, I don't know, I hate to say it, it's like a total idiot, but it looks like Final Fantasy. Like, it looks like a really good Final Fantasy game. Like, I don't know, it looks cool. Maybe more medieval, like slightly, I guess, like less techy. I don't know. It looked cool to me. I actually was pretty drawn in.
JRPG fans are going to be upset with you.
I know they will. I know they will. But
even to me, Paul, it looks nothing like Final Fantasy.
Does it really look nothing? That to me, like the gameplay and like the feel, just like it felt more like Final Fantasy than like other things. But maybe it's just because you know what it is. I think there's very few like JRPGs that are like that's not true. But what I'm trying to say is, I feel like games that look this good, like with this kind of graphical style, typically are like, I don't know. I think of Final Fantasy games being the other ones with like the resources, have the time to make them look this good and be this type of game.
That's fair. I get it. I'm open to giving this game a shot. I've never played a Tales game, but you know, I know the last two entries weren't as well liked. I'm open to giving this one a shot though. I have a nitpick with JRPGs. I don't understand why they
You're going to be the one who gets yelled at.
Why do they? Yeah, I will. Why do they insist on combat being scenario based? You know, where like you walk up to a monster and there's like a like a fade or like a digitization of the screen, and then you go into the battle. Like, why can't it just be overworld action? I don't understand why they have to have these like small little, we'll call them separate instances that are like the battle arenas. It just breaks immersion for me. I don't really understand why that still needs to happen in JRPGs today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like before it was like a resources thing, probably, right? Like
I imagine,
fade to a different screen for it to work properly. But now I'm thinking how if you just like if they wanted to keep that turn-based style and not have you like running around as if you were in the overworld.
That I understand.
It would feel weird to just freeze. It would feel weird to like counter an enemy. Like it would still have to like rejig your camera to like put you in the right space to make it look a certain way.
I
so
get
you have
that.
to like go and change your camera, and I feel like just fading would make it a cleaner cut, so it would always change the same way.
Right. I mean, when games are turn-based, I understand when it's turn-based combat, but when it's action combat, I don't understand why we need to go into these little scenarios for combat. It's just
that's super true.
It's weird to me. There's like small little hangups for me on JRPGs, and that's one of them. But I'll just have to get over it if I want to give it a shot.
Gonna have to get over it. I wish you luck. I've tried. I told you I tried World. I tried playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. I got about 2 hours in, and I'll never pick it up again. But I might. You know what? I might, if I can find a good sale on Persona 5, I might be sold on that. The high school superhero thing seems to be more.
See, that's one of those things where like I'm going to try to not get myself hated by half the world, but I don't like anime because admittedly, when I do, I watch dubs, and typically that makes the dialogue really bad. So that's always an issue for me.
You should try subs though. Subs are I tried subs a couple years ago, and I actually hated it less than I thought I did. I actually stopped enjoying certain dubs.
But the same thing happens in JRPGs, like it does in anime, and I feel like that brings down the power of the story in these things. Yeah. But the point being, Persona 5, I feel like that's not an issue. Like the story in that game really still holds up. It's still entertaining. The humor's still there. It still really works. And that's why I liked it so much.
Yeah, I feel like with Yakuza, and this is like we're off topic here, crazy, but I just want to quickly say, like, I think my issue is I just don't like mob stories, so naturally I won't like a mob story. Like, it doesn't matter that it was a JRPG. I think it just isn't my type of story. And also I feel like part of the enjoyment of that is like Japanese mob culture and like all that kind of stuff, or even just Japanese culture in a way that, like, I don't know, in a frame that I don't care about or don't know. So
Oh yeah, I
probably
get
not
that.
for me. What's that?
I said no. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. So, yep, that's it. I think you said I'll edit that. I was like, oh God, what did I say? I mean, definitely we're going to get emails. ggreplayshow@gmail.com. Address them to Matt. Both of our names are Matt, just to avoid me getting yelled at. All right. Let's move on. Talk about the top stories of the day, because we have a bunch of them. First off, Matt, we've been talking about it for weeks. Alan Wake Remastered is official. The game was announced in a blog post from Sam Lake, creative director at Remedy. It will launch, quote unquote, this fall. No, we did hear rumors already. We talked about this earlier in the week about October 5th, possibly being like a PS Plus thing. We still don't, this is all just rumors, but would be interesting to see. The original game was only on Xbox 360 and PC, but this is going to be on everything. It's going to be on Xbox and PlayStation, all generations. They even specifically, weirdly, in the press release wrote like Xbox One S, One X, Series S, Series. It's like, okay, let's relax. And on PC as an Epic Game Store exclusive. But I think it's the good kind where they do at least pay some money to help publish the game, I think, or something. So
yeah, I mean, they are.
Yeah,
they're funding this. This game wouldn't exist if not for them.
So that's like, I think that's an appropriate time to make it an Epic Game Store exclusive, not just them like paying a bunch of money for it to be like on no one else's store. Now, we talked about this a little bit in the week, so we won't go crazy talking about it. But I know neither of us have played. Right? You have not played it, right?
I started it up. It was like free on GOG at one point a few years ago, and I started up, but I didn't play long at all.
Yeah, it seems really, really interesting. And after we talked about it last week, I did look it up a little bit more, not to get spoiled. I did look at a few things though, and it looks pretty awesome. I actually really want to try playing it right now, but I feel like it's a fool's move when there's a remaster coming out soon. So I'm just gonna hold off. I'm glad it will be. They've said fall, so I mean, presumably we're gonna get something within the next few months. I would hope before the holiday season. I feel like that would be kind of a weird thing. So hopefully October, November. I'm psyched. It's cool to see a remaster. Cool to see these games come back. Again, just more and more Alan Wake push. We saw Alan Wake stuff in Control. We see Alan Wake Remastered here. I feel like there's definitely a push for Alan Wake 2 or some kind of new Alan Wake project. Hopefully it does well.
I really think that this is a game that would be up your alley.
I think so too.
Story-based game, a little bit some creepy vibes about. It's about a writer. There is gameplay there, so it's not just like a walking sim story. So I do think that this would be up your alley. I'm excited for it. I hope the remaster does well critically, because I want it to be a good remaster.
Yeah, of course.
And then if it is good, I will definitely pick it up, especially if it is October 5th. It feels like a really good cozy, I know it's a weird way to say it, but a good cozy Halloween type game.
A good cozy, creepy, engrossing story to get into. It's like a good ghost story. You just want to read that. Maybe it's cozy in a way to read like a classic ghost story, and this is kind of that same kind of vibe a little bit. So
someone on
good stuff.
Someone on Reddit referred to this as like an interactive Stephen King novel.
Yes, I remember you saying that last week or the other day, and that really drew me. Not that I'm like a massive Stephen King reader, but I do enjoy the works of Mr. King, especially the older stuff, and it is cool to imagine that in a game. Seems like a lot of fun. All right, getting some like 1408 vibes or something. Let's move on to something that I was writing the story, and then Matt informed me that the story had changed. So let's go through a little bit what happened. So Jagex, I'll start the story by saying they reversed course after pulling a major fan-made graphics mod at the 11th hour. So what happened? I'm sure if you're anyone out here is a fan of RuneScape Classic or has just even been on Reddit in the last day, because it was the top of our all, a developer, 117, spent 2 years and 2,000 hours personally developing a graphics mod for RuneLite, which is the third-party RuneScape 2007 modding platform. Now RuneScape did, or Jagex did say a couple years ago when RuneLite became popular that this was an okay thing to do. They said graphical mods are okay. So this person worked on this, basically overhauled the graphics in a pretty amazing way. Some of the screenshots are quite nice. The smoothness, the lighting. It was a very good remaster, and it took forever. So it finally got built. They've been doing it publicly for years. It was pretty known about. It got built. It was already bug tested, everything. It was about to go live on RuneLite. By the way, it's called RuneLite HD. It was about to go live on RuneLite, and got a cease and desist from Jagex saying, you know what, we're actually possibly going to explore a graphics update at some point. We're in the early stages of thinking about it, basically. I'm not going to get a direct quote. That's it. And so that was it. Down the drain the day it was supposed to come out. This is a massive outcry. It was the top of Reddit. Everyone was freaking out. Jagex has been known for some anti-consumer practices or anti-fan practices like this before. And it's crazy because overall, this is a big update. It's a lot of work. I mean, imagine 2,000 hours, even to have a team to do it in a reasonable, you know what I mean? Like a full-time thing. That would cost, dev money. That would cost, that'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars possibly to like produce that. This is a very workable, great bug-tested version of that they have for free for their game. This person just volunteered it for free. They don't even have to hire them or something to like work on it. It's done. It's amazing, and they're going to keep like working on it for free. And they're like, nah. So naturally, that has reversed. Now, we're not totally there. It's not out yet, but Jagex has now reached out. Some of the people from the OS RuneScape dev team, which were not the people behind this move, more of like the higher ups, the financial team. They were I think the arbiters of this. And in addition, some people from RuneLite, and everyone's kind of been working together to hopefully get this out until at some point Jagex comes out with their own HD graphical update. That was a mouthful, Matt, but I don't know, were you following this before it got reversed? Did you see this? What's your take? I think, I'm not going to like just go shit on everyone because it's fun, but I mean, Jagex, what the hell, man? Like, what a bad move. Again, just for your own sake, it's bad. You're just wasting free development.
Yeah, it's weird that they made that decision, but I do know that with MMOs, the developers are always protective about mods that change graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you can get into a situation where there could be certain advantages or disadvantages for players who don't have it. Now, I know RuneLite is something that people have been using for years. Often people, like when you're playing old school RuneScape, they're basically saying you have to play using RuneLite because it gives you everything you need.
They basically are endorsing RuneLite, and saying like the mods from RuneLite are like RuneLite heavily caters to what Jagex says and what they're very entwined.
Right. And so RuneLite is great. It's been around forever. So it's like you said, yeah, it's been very public that this HD RuneLite has been in development. Lazy Peon did a video with it like a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, it seems like late 2018, early 2019 was when we started to really hear about this. That's my main problem, right? I mean, that's a lot of people's main problem is like, you know what? Hey, if you want to drop this out, if you want to say no, that's fine. But they waited 2 years and like it was very public. People at Jagex like pretty much admitted and knew about it.
Right. That is a problem.
That's the problem, right? It's just a nasty way to treat a fan, right? I mean, hey, if you're like, yeah, go ahead and make an HD mod, but we're not going to publish it because we don't allow them. That's one thing. But they basically didn't say that, and then they let them spend like 2,000 hours making it. Not cool. Not a cool move.
Now, it would be cool if they said something, or like their plan was, we're kind of waiting to see how it works out, if he can actually get this to release, and then we'll just like purchase it from him or bring him on the team or something like that. But if that was the plan, then you got to go about it a different way. I
saw people saying that too. It's like maybe this would have been a good move for them. They could have purchased this for pretty cheap, I'm sure, because I mean this person's putting it online for free. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like, I'm sure they'd be willing to take a little bit of, like, not a whole chunk of money for it, or even just hiring this person who's like clearly a great dev. From what I read, a lot of the, like, not to like throw shade, but a lot of the old school RuneScape devs are people who don't have like a ton of experience in like traditional game development. The code on OS RuneScape is a lot of like reconfiguring stuff that already existed because it's kind of a pile of old code. So it'd be cool to kind of like have someone in there who's like maybe more of a traditional developer who can like do something as crazy as overhauling the entire graphic system. That would be a good talent to have on the team, I feel like.
This isn't like a move like this from Jagex isn't super surprising just because
Yeah.
Jagex has the ownership is if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole, look at like how ownership has changed hands with Jagex over the years. It is so weird. I think there's even like questions about who actually owns it right now. Like it's really weird. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Like it has been passed around so many times. There were and you know countries or companies in different countries, and that was an issue. I think there was something about a Russian company was saying they still own them, and then this other company was saying no, we purchased them, you don't own them anymore.
Oh my God.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I've heard from what I gleaned just from looking at this, not as a huge follower of RuneScape, I did see like there is clearly quite a lot of contention with Jagex amongst the community, and so this is not the first time that people were not super surprised to see a contentious and kind of bad move like this.
They're currently owned by the Carlyle Group, which is an American multinational private equity corporation. Okay. So they're just owned by an investment firm right now.
Yeah, basically. Interesting. And what, just before we move on, but what happened with Titan Reach? Is that done or is that just pushed back?
Titan Reach. So Titan Reach, for anyone who's not aware, is sort of a 3D clone of RuneScape. Essentially, it's a separate MMO, but it's a small independent dev team. They had a failed Kickstarter. They have paused development. They ran out of money. They had multiple developers working on it full time, which I think was the wrong way to go about it. Mm-hmm. Like you're obviously going to run out of money if you're doing it that way. Work on it part-time for a little while and see how long you can stretch the funds out. So yeah, it's probably gonna die. I mean, it's hard to come back from that. I mean, they've had so many things against them, beginning with a failed Kickstarter.
Of course, yeah. I saw a lot of people talking about that too, and being like, "Oh, I wish there was something like a more HD, thing that wasn't Jagex." People were like, "Titan Reach," and I was like, no one mentioned it in the Reddit threads, but I was like, didn't we just talk about? That's kind of like DOA at this point.
It's probably not coming back.
I will say this mod made me interested in RuneScape. I've actually thought about playing old school RuneScape a couple times. I wanted to play 3 maybe just because I didn't like the graphics from old school RuneScape, but then I know 3 is kind of like mixed reviews. I feel like if I'm gonna play it, I should play old school, and I like the numbers go up. Thing sounds kind of fun, but when there's so much of it that's fashion based and like getting cool outfits, when it looks so like dated, it's really hard for me. But from what I saw from screenshots from this mod from RuneLite HD, it looks pretty great. So good enough that I might be able to try. So maybe I'll get into some RuneScape. I am looking for a light MMO to get into. So
it's on mobile too.
I know it is on mobile. Actually, I tried playing it on mobile a year ago, 2 years ago, when it came out on there, and a little too small for me. A little too small.
Makes sense.
Like maybe on like an iPad or something, I might be able to get away with.
Yeah, I see that.
Moving right along, Firesprite has been acquired by Sony. Sony is just grabbing studios up, and they are going to join the PlayStation Studios family. We're seeing more and more of this. Microsoft was doing it before, but now we're seeing Sony really start to catch up in this last in the summer. They've already acquired like 3 or 4 studios, I think, that were like notable. So yeah, this is a large team, 250 members. And it was set up by former members of Sony's Studio Liverpool. So they made F1, Wipeout, Lemmings. Pretty interesting that it was people who formerly worked for a Sony studio, and then Sony kind of like brought it home almost. They're like, hey, you guys like went off and did your own thing. Well, now we're interested in acquiring studios. So now we have the space for you. So yeah, the big news here is that they've been working on a game-changing, huge multiplayer game. That's a quote, according to Christopher Dring on Twitter, which is pretty cool. And GameIndustry.biz has an interview that tells us they're also working on an ambitious, dark narrative blockbuster adventure. Are these the same game? What is this? These are some interesting.
These are 2 games.
Descriptions to use.
They are 2 separate
huge
games.
Multiplayer game. They are 2 separate ones. And ambitious, dark. I feel like everything about this seems ambitious. It seems like they're promising some pretty big stuff with very vague statements. Both seem pretty far off. Matt, what's your take as the Sony pony of the Goodnight Groofs? How are you feeling about this acquisition? Is this seem like a good studio to fit in with PlayStation Studios?
It's interesting. I'm very curious to see where this goes. Like you said, ambitious, dark narrative blockbuster adventure. That sounds like a PlayStation Studios game.
It does.
Game-changing, huge multiplayer game. That would mean that, along with The Last of Us factions, if these are going to be PlayStation games, because these were in the works before presumably this acquisition, this would be two large multiplayer games for PlayStation that are currently in the works, which is not a realm that PlayStation has really been a part of recently. So that's interesting. I do like this new push that they're making toward multiplayer. I think there's also some speculation that they could be involved in VR, with PSVR 2 going forward. They did develop the Playroom and the Playroom VR for PlayStation. So that could be something. And if that's the case, that would almost make sense to me that they announced it before the PlayStation showcase, because they specifically said they're not talking about VR tomorrow. So that could maybe be an indication of that. But they are the fastest growing UK game development studio.
Wow.
So there is potential here. I don't know what's going to come from this, but the fact that they're working on 2 games right now is pretty cool. And I'm excited to learn more. I don't think we'll see anything from them tomorrow, but in the future, I'm excited for this. I mean, that's a big team, 250 developers.
Huge.
So
Huge team.
A lot of potential here.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you mentioned the PSVR thing. It's funny to think that they would announce it the day before, and then and then as if they were doing it in space of doing it tomorrow instead of doing it tomorrow, because maybe there is a tie-in with PSVR and they already said they aren't going to do it. That's so interesting. I never had that inclination, but that's an interesting thing. Maybe it'd be interesting to see what they don't talk about tomorrow, because maybe that's the stuff that might be VR tied in. That's interesting. It's cool to see Sony dabble in more multiplayer, and by dabble, I mean jump right in, because it seems like they're promising some pretty big projects. So pretty cool. Naughty Dog's doing it. We have Firesprite doing it, and more to come. So pretty exciting. I will say, when you were saying if they're going to be PlayStation games, I don't know. I feel like I would say there's a pretty good chance they will be PlayStation exclusive games, if only because they seem extremely far out. The descriptions are vague. We don't seem to be getting a lot. It seems weird to me that they already would have made deals with like certain consoles and exclusivity yet. So I feel like maybe there's an openness, not like stuff like when Bethesda was purchased and like they were deep into. We knew all about Deathloop and that kind of stuff. So
No, I agree with that. I think these are going to be PlayStation games exclusively, but I don't know if they began development under the assumption that they were going to be like PlayStation Studios games. Like, to me, in my mind, there's a difference between a PlayStation exclusive game and a game that is being developed under the family of PlayStation Studios. Like, there's a different level of quality that's expected. Yep.
I get that. Although it is a good sign that they were formerly, they're headed by like a former Sony Studios people. So
yeah.
All right, moving right along. Far Cry 6 will upgrade PS4 and Xbox One to PS5 and Series X and S for free. Pretty awesome. We just talked about this last week. It was the $10 upgrade fiasco and everything with Horizon Forbidden West. And they said that will be free. Now, obviously, free is not necessarily going to be what we can take for granted. I mean, free is good and awesome to see, but also, $10 is pretty fair. But cool to see free here, especially from a third-party game. I think that's kind of a little out there. I don't think that's necessarily to be expected from everyone. Matt, how are you feeling as someone who's definitely going to buy Far Cry 6? I mean, you're obviously going to buy it for next gen, right? You're going to buy it for PS5, I'm assuming? Or PC?
Yeah, probably for PS5. I've always played Far Cry on console, which is weird because I usually play first-person shooters on PC, but I do Far Cry.
Open world aspect, maybe, just hanging out on the couch.
Yeah, Far Cry 4 I did play on PC, but 3 and 5 and Blood Dragon played on console. No, this is great. Especially that this is Ubisoft. This is a good sign.
That's what I was going to say. I'm actually kind of surprised that I was expecting Ubisoft to do a very different move here.
Yeah. So this is good. Like you said, it's good to see this from third-party publishers. And hopefully with this being Ubisoft, this being what's typically seen as a greedy publisher and also one of the, if not the biggest third-party publisher, I hope this starts a trend. I hope they're the leaders of a trend here. Third-party games obviously are going to lag behind PS5 first-party games in terms of DualSense features. And we've talked about this
You and the
before.
dual sense, I tell you.
I got a point here. I got a point.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So because of that, I think that they should be free. We've talked about how I feel like DualSense development is sort of the main driver behind the $10 upgrade. Obviously, you have the visual stuff, but I do think that the DualSense and the extra development that goes into that is what is driving the main factor in the $10 upgrade. And the fact that third-party games probably aren't going to be all in on the DualSense. They're going to have some features here and there, but it's not going to be maybe like haptic feedback the entire time that you're walking around. It might not be, the bowstring tension or whatever might not be as accurate. I don't really know, but I just know that it's not going to be as big of a deal as first party games. So yeah, that makes sense. There's not as much development there. So I think that's part of the reason why you see a free upgrade.
Yeah, I think my take on this a little bit with that, then we did talk about this earlier in the week too when we talked about the Forbidden West stuff, but I feel like in general, as we've been talking about these games getting more and more and more and more expensive, and I say it that many times because they are crazy expensive to produce these huge quadruple A games. I think for a long time, studios and publishers have been wanting to ask more money for them, but it's just not something that's going to fly. And I think that that's something they see next gen as being the opportunity to do. I mean, they don't even have to necessarily explain it. They'll go, oh, 4K, we have to do more. We have to render more. Sure, you have to render more, but like, I think it's more fair to say we've been doing this for years and we just haven't been charging you for it, but it's been getting more expensive for us. Now, I'm not saying poor companies, but I'm saying, maybe there is a slightly rising cost there that needs to happen. But if that's the case, I think next gen is a safe place to go, okay, well, things just have to cost $10 more. Now it's next gen. This is just the way next gen's going to go. So maybe this is where we start seeing the $70 game. But on the flip side, if they're going to make their games cross-gen, I think it's only fair to make those cross-gen games the same price they've always been. So you're not kind of like, excluding people who existed on those things before. I don't want to buy the Series X. Why do I have to pay $10 more for a game on Xbox One that's coming out on both? That's fine. Fair enough. I mean, there's a good reason why maybe you do have to pay $10 more, but whatever. And so that's why I feel like, it is fair maybe to have those $10 upgrades, only because that's how you're going to just bridge that gap into kind of changing the industry to be $70 per game. Again, I'm not saying I think $70 per game is necessarily fair, but I do see how game costs are rising, so it wouldn't surprise me that they might need to raise the price a little bit. So that's kind of my take, more so than the features. I think like DualSense features, adding 4K resolutions, adding some stuff like that, RTX, some things that are coming with next gen probably cost more, but not like true, like as much as like the jump has been in the last 10 years where they haven't changed prices. I think that's really been the change. And now it's like, oh God, now we finally have to change prices and we don't have like a really good reason to. Like DualSense 4K, some of these things, it's like, it's not like a good enough reason for $10 per unit. And they're like, fuck it. Like we're just raising them.
No, you make a lot of sense. And that's really probably what it mostly comes down to. So I'm just maybe giving Sony a good excuse that they can use.
Yeah, I think it's a good excuse. I think that's what I'm saying. Unfortunately, I just think the excuses aren't good enough. Like I think it's like it's hard for them to just go, oh, it's because the resolution's better and DualSense. And I think a lot of people are kind of like a little hip to that and being like, that's not $10 more to me. And it's like, okay, well, really, it's just they've gotten really expensive for the last 10 years and we've been giving you guys a price break. But like now we're going to start milking it a bit more. And it's like, okay.
What do you think about? And I don't know if this works in a market like video games that's been so standardized for so long. But what do you think about like, say like Red Dead Redemption 2 is $100 game and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a $50 game? Like what would you think about something like that? Where they just they change it based on not necessarily length, but quality? I don't know.
Type of game. That's the problem. I think it would be very difficult to have that be. That is so interesting because that's not something that really happens in media, I think, too much. You don't get that. Like you look at like movies, it doesn't matter what movie it is, they're all going to cost the same at the theater or cost the same at the Blu-ray store, whatever the fuck you do online. And fucking Best Buy or whatever. Not that anyone's buying Blu-rays, but you know what I mean. But the point is, I don't know. I think there'd be a lot of trouble with reviews at that point, games not living up, and then it'd be like, oh well, this has got a 70, so why am I paying as much as I did for this game that got 100? And it's like, well, they're different genres. Well, in its genre, this game got better. It's like, okay, like I don't know if that works for media. I was gonna say like it works for like technology, like cars or phones or computers or TVs, stuff that have different like quantifiable specs, but I
Yeah.
don't know if that works for media. But I thought that was an interesting idea when you first said it, but I'm like, I just think that would, I don't know how it would work.
Yeah, I don't think it would
Um,
work either. And I do think you made a good point with reviews. I don't know if I think even right now, I think they should mostly be done without consideration of price because I don't know if that is something that should be factored in or not. I don't know. I go back and forth on that because you look at like The Order 1886, like that's a game that a large part of the reason why it got reviewed poorly was because it was like a 6 hour game but it was a full price game. So like that is something to be critical of. So maybe it should just be
I
something that's
think
brought up
price
when it's
makes sense.
egregious.
I think price makes sense when like you go like, hey, you know what, this game was pretty good, and for $10 and you like this kind of game, you'll enjoy it. You know what I mean? But it's like, oh, if it's like a $60 game, no, like it's not good enough. But I think there's a lot of things that are medium good that it's like, okay, like that's fine. Little Caesars is not my favorite pizza, but for like $5 when I just feel like getting a pizza, I think that's worth what it's worth. And I think that goes for a lot of games too. I think price is a good consideration.
It's that just like going back to the other media thing, you don't see that in other media. Like no one's like, I bought a $15 movie ticket to go see this movie, and like I don't know, maybe if it was like a $10 movie ticket, it would have been more worth it. I don't know.
Right.
Like you don't see that happen.
That would be interesting though. I think that would be a thing though. I think if it's like, and I've seen that with like buying with like, I
I
don't
feel like
know.
it's
Like I remember
different
that
with
was the thing.
movies though.
You
Like
get
either
a
it's good or
DVD
it's
though.
not.
It's like, oh, I got a deal on a DVD for like $1 at the store. Like it was in the Walmart bin and it was actually pretty good. And so it's like, it was like, oh, for $1, like it was worth it. I don't feel like I lost too much money and the movie didn't have to be amazing. You know what I mean? There is something like that. It doesn't work for theaters and things because again, there isn't really sales on like live consumption like that. But I think on like owning content, I think it does make sense that like sales can happen or things come out at different price points. I mean, yeah, I mean things already come out at different price points, like you're saying, but I mean more like indies and stuff.
Right.
Um,
In a hypothetical world where Red Dead is $100 and Ratchet and Clank is $50, I do think then
I guess you know what, that makes
you
sense.
would definitely have to take price into consideration for reviews at that point.
Yeah, you know what? I'm out here saying like they should all be the same cost, but they really aren't. Games are really aren't. I think it's what threw me off was you going higher because I'm so used because there's already games like that. You know, Red Dead Redemption is $60, and you know there's I don't know, fucking I don't know. There's good, solid single player games that come out like $40. They exist. Divinity Original Sin 2 came out and it wasn't $60. I think that's something like $40. And it's like obviously they're different genres, but that I would say is like developed to the point where that's a massive, great single player experience. So I mean, obviously games come out at different price points. Maybe they're. I just don't think there's any games that come out that are worth $100 yet for a standard edition. That's the
Well,
issue for
right.
me.
That's the question is like a game like, and I'll keep using it as
I
an
don't think
example.
Red Dead 2 is worth $100 to me.
And I think a lot of people would say that it is. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think what's the
how would it
ceiling
sell
is
at
really
that
the
price? I don't know.
yeah. I think what's the ceiling is really the question, right? Because I think yeah, you just totally threw my argument up on its head because you're totally right. There already are games at different prices. I was kind of like talking like they're all at $60, but they're not. And yeah, I guess the real question is how high can that go when that feels like it's fair, and before you start going, this game that's just as good as half the cost at retail, not sale, right?
Hmm.
That starts to get into the issue, right? When there's $50 games coming out, they're as good as $100 games. Are they as good? But how much? That's the right now. I think the difference between game prices there's like a smaller disparity, a smaller gap in price. But the higher the game prices get, the more there'll be like a gap, and the more it'll be like, wow, is it really worth this much?
My
I
my
think I'm already starting to get there.
my last point on this is that I think we would run into an issue that we're already running into where games they're bloated with extra content to fill them out at times. And then
Yeah.
if you have a market where some games are 80, 90, $100, you're going to
Mhm.
see developers adding more content, publishers asking the developers to add more content that isn't actually good. It's just filling it out so the game is longer so they can
Yeah.
say that, well, there's a reason why we're able to justify this higher price. That would
Yeah.
be a major issue. I think that we would see happen immediately if that were to happen.
Yep. Makes total sense. Very interesting. Very good point. Great discussion, Matt. I know we're running the show long, but that was really interesting. I hope everyone at home enjoyed that because that was interesting to think about. Really good questions. All right, we're moving on. We'll try to fly through some of these last things here. Is Crash coming back? I hope so. I mean, did Crash left, but Crash I thought it was already kind of bad.
Crash
But maybe
Bash.
the Crash Bash. It's Crash Bash coming back. Crash Bash. Okay. Crash Bash. Well, that is a good question. All this stuff about parties really changes how I thought of this whole thing.
Exactly.
I was gonna say maybe they're talking about the Crash Mario Party game. They were. This is exactly okay. So there was a tweet. I did read the tweet. I read all this. I just didn't see you wrote Crash Bash. That feeling you get when you hear there's a certain party right around the corner with 3 laughing emojis. Were they crying laughing emojis or just laughing emojis?
They were laughing with like the eyes closed, but they weren't crying.
They weren't crying. Okay. I don't know about that. Pretty sus. So yeah, there's a lot of people are thinking maybe this is a Crash Bash thing. Maybe we're seeing like a, another party game starring our favorite Bandicoot. Could be pretty cool. But also good to keep in mind, as Matt points out here, 25th anniversary of Crash Bandicoot will be tomorrow. So could just be like birthday party for Crash.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Crash Bash party.
Right.
But that being said, there is a PlayStation showcase tomorrow on the 25th anniversary of Crash's birthday. I think this is probably more of a birthday thing, and we are gonna get a little Crash, like a little Crash video, like talking about how we love Crash, and then maybe like a exclusive stupid thing in some other game that's like, oh, this day only you can have a Crash skin in Genshin Impact. No, not Genshin, but you know what I mean. But something ridiculous, or a new Crash avatar on the PlayStation Network or something. But maybe I'm wrong. Matt, how are you feeling? Do you feel like we might get Crash Bash, as you wrote here?
I hope so. I think it's probably more along the lines of something that you're talking about, where it's really just a Crash Bandicoot birthday celebration. But I would love Crash Bash. I loved Crash Bash back in the day. I would love to see another
That's
one.
hard to say. Crash Bash back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see it brought back. It's a great party game.
I have never played. You just have all these great Crash memories, and I've told you, but I've said this on the show before, but I'm so jealous. I got a PlayStation. I had an N64 as a kid. I never played PlayStation. I got a PlayStation, and it broke the day I got it. Never worked, and I never got to play it. And it didn't, because it was a whole story. I won't get into the long and the short of it is. They basically didn't refund my mom when it broke, and I didn't ever got the PlayStation. It wasn't for like a Christmas or birthday or anything. It was just like I don't know, she was feeling really weird and spendy, and she just bought it home on like a random summer day. So it wasn't like a huge disappointment. Like it sucked, but I also wasn't like desperately dying for a PlayStation. I was like, okay. But I always look back on it, and I'm so disappointed because it came with Crash. When I got it, and I was so excited, and there was all these other, and every year, all the years I saw these Crash games come out, and I was like, this seemed like it would have been something I would have really loved, and I never got to. I was stuck playing Mario Party, which I'm sure a lot of people might argue is better, but I was always romanticizing Crash in the back of my mind.
Similar, sort of like reverse situation from you.
Yeah.
I got the N64 later, although mine didn't break on the first day. But
yeah.
I got the PlayStation because I went to the store with my dad, and my dad's like, which one should we get? And the guy is like, well, the PlayStation has better graphics.
Exactly.
So that's why I got a PlayStation.
I don't think it was a bad move, though. I mean, obviously Nintendo 64 obviously has like some of the most iconic games ever to come out. But I mean, the original PlayStation was a friggin' awesome console, especially when not every kid had one. I feel like as much as they had N64, so you probably had a lot of games that everyone was really psyched for.
It was great. I loved it.
Play. All right, moving right along, Dontnod. We already talked about them today, talking about Life is Strange, and these are the developers, of course, of Life is Strange 1, 2, Vampire, Tell Me Why, and also publishers will be moving toward a permanent work from home policy going forward. This is pretty cool. We talked recently about a lot of different companies doing a reverse thing where they were actually going back to work and doing different things like that. EA investing in new studios, like physical studios. So this is pretty interesting to see because there's a lot of people looking for stuff like this. Employees can choose to work from home, or they can work on site, and there will be an annual allotment of remote working days. So if they change their mind, they can go and work from home when necessary or when they feel like that's appropriate. And they do say this was something they were considering before the pandemic, which is, kind of interesting. I guess it's almost like not worth saying, but I feel like they're just saying it just to be like, give us credit. We were already planning this. Like, come on. Like, just like, we want you to know, like, we're forward thinking. This isn't just because of the pandemic, which is like, sure. Awesome. You don't need to. It's fine if the pandemic, was the thing that made you make this choice. Awesome. I love it. I think it's really, really cool. I love more work from home. It's cool to have both options, obviously,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
they seem to. And they're not just like, hey, you can work on site or you can like work a few days a week from home and that's it. And I'm like, hey, does that really? So you can have those hallway moments. I see like all those
Yeah.
companies going like those magic hallway interactions. It's like, oh, so it's not for a work thing, right? Like it's not for a work thing. I have to be there. So cool.
I hope it works for them. I have reservations about how well it can work in a creative, collaborative space,
Mhm.
but hopefully it works.
Yeah, it is interesting in like a story narrative based game developer to see
Yeah, you
that.
think about like a
Um,
writer's room, right?
yeah, it is interesting. I think a writer's worm, writer's worm,
Writer's a worm.
losing. I'm losing it here. A writer's room really works on Zoom. A writer's Zoom rather.
Ooh.
I think that works. I don't think like the physical proximity of all like sweating together and like drinking Diet Pepsi is necessary like for writing, and like pitching ideas, but. Maybe it is. I feel like you could stay on Zoom longer than you could lock yourself in a writer's room and scream stuff at each other. Um, what's the new power? I don't know. Fucking empathy. So yeah, that's a thing. Good for them. Cool to see. Not much more to say on that. And finally, moving on, just a little shout out here. A sad news piece today. George Mawle, gameplay engineer at Sony Santa Monica, really one of the main developers behind the Leviathan axe and the Blades of Chaos in the God of War reboot, has passed away. Pretty sad. He was a younger guy. I think he was middle aged. Sad to see, of course. I mean, that is one of the key things in that game. I mean, the feel of the Leviathan axe, the weight of it. I mean, I know a lot of people who didn't really even care about the game half the time, and just like I like who just wants to like throw the axe back and forth because it feels like Mjolnir.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So huge ups and for that one.
Yeah, that was I mean, the God of War reboot was great for a lot of reasons, but
Of course,
that really, really helped just tie it all together and make that game and just make it so fun to play and
and it's part
hopefully
of the puzzle aspects too, which is
yeah,
really cool. It worked so well in that aspect. It was really really cool.
hopefully younger developers recognize the brilliance of this guy and help
Mhm.
take his legacy forward.
Absolutely. All right, Matt. You know what? After that I don't know where are we at. 3 hours.
It
After
was a
that
long one. This is
wonderful
going to be the
was
longest replay episode, I think.
longest one. Well, great discussion. And you know what? If you enjoyed this discussion and you enjoyed this GG replay and you managed to listen all the way through till here, you can stay for another minute, okay, while I make my little pitch. So first off, we have a whole website, goodnightgroofs.com, where we have our blogs, podcasts, videos, links to all our socials with exclusive content on them, may or may not be updated recently, and a link to our Patreon, patreon.com/goodnightgroofs. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a $1, $3, and $5 tier. The $3 tier does give you early access to our all-encompassing gaming podcast hosted by Matt Game Groofs, which normally comes out on a Sunday, but you can be listening to it on your beautiful trip to the cabin before summer is over on a Friday evening. Always fun to do that. And also, if you're listening to this right now on a podcast app, and not YouTube, although YouTube, give us a like. That's always good. But if you're listening to this on a podcast app, feel free to smash the like button. Give us 5 stars. Leave a review even. Would be really, really nice. Comments on YouTube. We love hearing from everyone. Obviously, our $1 Patreon comments do get through to us a little bit quicker. But we love having comments from everyone. We will definitely shout them out, talk about them on the show. Obviously, we're pretty small right now, so any interaction we get, we love to talk about. We just had some interesting chats on our Gamescom video from our stream video that we did last week, 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and Mike and I did talk about those on the show. So definitely, interact. We love talking. If you heard any of this banter back and forth and you had strong opinions either way on Matt and I's points, leave them, voice them. We love to hear about it. And also if you feel like just shooting an email to us, if that's more comfortable for you, a private thing, ggreplayshow@gmail.com. We just love feedback, even if it's angry feedback. We like to get it. It's fun. I'm not asking for the downvotes, but I am asking for some hearty discussion. I tell you, engagement, as they say in like the gross way they talk about how humans discuss with each other on the internet. That is gonna be it for GG Replay today. for Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. Do not forget that tomorrow we are streaming live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Goodnight Groofs. Go there right now, follow us. You don't even have to remember it, and your phone or your computer will buzz you at the time, and you can just tune in while your boss is taking a dump. You can put it up on your side screen, and no one will know. No one will be any of the wiser that it's happening at 4 p.m. on a Thursday. Matt, do you have anything else to say before we head out for the day?
No, just gonna go play some RuneScape, but not in RuneLite HD.
Oh, whoa. That is hardcore, I tell you. Are you a Jagex employee? I think you might be. That is going to be it for this episode. Good night, Groofs, and we'll see you tomorrow.